So in this 2-episode hot take bonanza, we see another future for The Simpsons, Bart getting his revenge and Willie getting his happy ending. And yes, that sounds very, very wrong. In this video, I'll be running through what I thought worked and what didn't for the past couple of Simpsons episodes. Then I'll rate them and see where they place on my leaderboard for this season. So let's get into it. The first episode, which is a Thanksgiving episode, is titled It's a Blunderful Life and opens with a couch gag, which is probably the cutest thing about this episode. It was produced by YouTubers Katrine and Janine and perfectly nods to the warm and cozy Thanksgiving vibes in a really cute kitsch kind of way. And look, here's a video of them making it. Also, fun fact, these are the same creators behind this awesome recreation of Homer eating his way through New Orleans. And I always love that segment. The Simpsons just animate locations so darn well, which I'll touch on again later on in the video. Now for the actual story. The episode opens 60 years into the future with the Simpsons celebrating Thanksgiving. And if we pause it right here, we can see Lisa's daughter Zia, who we first met in Holidays of Future Past. She is joined by her 2 daughters. Bart's sons Jif and Skippy are also there, along with one of their kids, as well as 2 of Maggie's children too. Oh yeah, and Homer's dead.
Thank God we still have his hologram.
Also, since we're talking about an alternate future here, do you think that I should redo my Simpsons timeline videos? Not only have we seen tons of past and future episodes since, but hopefully I've improved from my god-awful delivery since way back then. Hopefully. Maybe. I really hope so. I was thinking about doing a video reacting to my old videos, so if you are interested in watching that, then let me know down in the comments. Anyway, at this family Thanksgiving dinner, Grandma Lisa recites her memory of one disastrous Thanksgiving over 60 years ago when Springfield suffered a blackout. So we venture into the present to see the news reporting on a big winter storm. Marge wakes Homer up to remind him to install the special storm windows, which of course he forgets, being far too preoccupied with the power plant's Hawaiian day. Thus sowing the seed that he just can't be trusted, and Marge shouldn't rely on him for anything or his words of reassurance, but more on that later. Anyway, this Hawaiian day turns out to be Mr. Burns' way to distract his employees who are part of the union, to then replace them with non-union members, or scabs as they like to put it.
In an older era, they'd call you scabs. Now you're just friends without benefits.
And these guys, they only really know how to sing and dance, but hey, they're cheaper. Unfortunately, this song just doesn't hold a flame to Mr. Burns' See My Vest from season 6, but to be fair, See My Vest was an absolute classic and one of the best musical moments in Simpsons history.
Na na na. Bart! Sorry, you gotta admit it's catchy.
Also, fun fact, did you know that The Simpsons not only made compilations of these iconic songs, but also albums that were original and unique to their merchandise? Yet within them, they had specific stories and songs that we didn't hear on the show. Like there's one all about Apu getting excited about being tied up, which is kinda kinky. But you know what, you can read all about that in my music chapter in my brand new book Collecting The Simpsons, which has just been released. It's full of gorgeous colourful photos of the merchandise and their stories from the 90s all the way to today. And in my opinion, it could be a great holiday gift for a Simpsons loving weirdo in your life. But don't just take my word for it, on the back cover we have blurbs and endorsements from showrunner Matt Selman, writer Bill Oakley, director Wes Archer, the producer of Robot Chicken John Harvatine, and Simpsons comic writer Ian Boothby. And inside the book we have a lovely review by book lover herself Lisa Simpson, Yardley Smith, which is incredibly surreal. And I'm so excited it's finally out, and I've popped the link down below in the pinned comment if you're interested and curious in learning more. But yes, the song and dance number actually leads into a fire which causes the blackout. But just before this, Homer narrowly avoided a similar catastrophe when dumping some trash. But even still, Homer Simpson is the one blamed for the accident.
So who screwed up here? Homer?
Homer! Homer! Homer!
Homer returns home and installs the storm windows that Marge asked him to, which makes her suspicious because he's actually being helpful.
Did you have anything to do with the blackout?
Everybody thinks I did, but I didn't.
So she figures that he must be the one responsible for the blackout, even when Homer asks her to believe him. And it's at this point where Lisa comes in and says that an angry mob will be after them. Again. Now, besides from the fact that Homer didn't actually cause the accident, isn't this feeling a lot like the Simpsons movie? Like the town's in imminent danger, there's a mob, and Marge's quote-unquote final straw with Homer.
Marge, in every marriage, a spouse gets to say one time, "You have got to believe me." Marge, in every marriage, you get one chance to say, "I need you to do this with me."
And later on, the Simpsons even have to relocate somewhere cold. But let's slow down a bit on that point and get to Grandpa, because unlike in the Simpsons movie and a lot of episodes, he wasn't just a shallow, raving old man for once. It's at this point he shows the family how they can live without electricity.
Oh! Grandpa, you saved us!
To be honest, it was really nice seeing the family finally look up to Grandpa and see him with a little glimmer of respect. And I thought this would really go somewhere, as it would have been quite good to see them celebrate Thanksgiving in a classic old-timey kind of way. I mean, let's face it, the rest of Springfield kind of got this transformation, including Moe's and Lisa's narration.
And in my memory, I sound like this.
So why couldn't this extend to the rest of Springfield, focusing more on getting through the hard times to come together for a simple celebration? But no, everyone remains hateful, and Grandpa was back to being a senile old man by the 17th minute. The town was so fed up with Homer and his supposed antics that they carted their entire house to the tip-top of a mountain, but hey, at least they still had Flanders.
I asked them to move my house right next to yours.
Oh!
And let me just say here, this takes us to the 70-minute mark, leaving only 3 minutes or so for the Simpsons to save the day and resume back to the status quo. So, not a lot of time, and we can only predict that the conclusion is gonna be very quick, very confusing, and very rushed, which it was. Yep, Marge believed in Homer in the end because, well, he stored a turkey in the snow, didn't eat it, and he had a photo to prove it.
And if you're telling the truth about that, then you're telling the truth about everything.
Which, you know, might have been fine if we saw him do this earlier to bring the photo back around. And even then, he and the family still had no idea who caused the blackout. They just kind of presumed it was Mr. Burns, aka
The town villain. Luigi. No, Burns.
And even if this was just supposed to be ironic in that the answer was just a simple lazy guess, then even still, it wasn't done very well. The only proof we had by this point is a Polaroid of Homer holding a turkey. There seems to be no other way to help move this story along. Like in the newspaper they received, why not have a clue hidden within it? Or why not have Grandpa and his feud with Mr. Burns return, proving once again that Grandpa isn't as silly as he may seem? I don't know, just flesh out the bones or something. But instead, the family simply go to confront Mr. Burns at his mansion, and he's surprised that his faithful trapdoor requires electricity to function. So, at least it provided a bit of a laugh here as Mr. Smithers tried to slowly move the trapdoor, which was very, very funny. And soon enough, Chief Wiggum arrives to arrest Mr. Burns. Again, very quick and very confusing. And I'm gonna say it, very, very lazy. Why would Wiggum believe the Simpsons when the last time he saw them, they were hated and on top of a mountain? But alas, the resolution is still there and the town forgives Homer and moves the houses back, and everyone enjoys the Thanksgiving dinner in both the present and the future. Well, except for Bart, who dies of boredom, which isn't too far from my experience of the story. Actually, that's a lie. It wasn't boring per se because it was just too zany to feel boring. They were jumping all over the shop here. There were musical numbers, houses on cliffs, quick resolutions with turkeys, and future wraparound scenes that just didn't really amount to much. I mean, I did appreciate it was good to see some more bizarre elements in a Simpsons episode, but to see them all combined was slightly jarring. I really can't help but feel it was just a jumble of items there to fill some runtime. And having these strange scenes like the musical number and the future wraparounds interwoven, it just kind of made the story drag a bit, when really more time should have been dedicated into developing the Act 3 or the conclusion of the plot just to make the story a bit more even. Like, there were just some odd choices here, like with Lisa's Little House on the Prairie narration, but then not really indulging in them living in the 1800 era. Like, they could have had real fun with it. They had already committed to redesigning Moe's Tavern, so why not drag that into other areas of Springfield? And then instead have the entire story focusing more on them enjoying the holidays as simple townsfolk, but hey, I'm not a writer. But at least it might link a bit more into the future wraparound scene, because Lisa mentions that they don't need the technology that they have now because they didn't have that much back then. To me personally, it just felt as if they were trying to squeeze the Simpsons movie but into 21 minutes. This is without the time to really do the story justice, and without it, it just was never gonna work. But in terms of the good things about this episode, I really did enjoy the short but warm scene that we got with Grandpa and the joke about him not really knowing what decade he grew up in.
Back in the 30s or 50s or whatever makes sense now.
And I mean, the couch gag was great, and I did think the post-credit scene with Homer reading to Lisa was also very sweet too. But yeah, unfortunately the payoff just wasn't that great, especially with that conclusion. So for that reason, I will award this episode 2 out of 5 stars. So moving on to the 8th episode of the season, and we have a Willie-centric episode. Entitled A Bonny Romance, it tells the story of Willie rekindling his relationship with his wee bonny lass Maisie, voiced by Karen Gillan.
Give us a smooch, you big ugly ball bag.
This episode predominantly takes place in Edinburgh and features other Scottish stars, including the band Bell and Sebastian and David Tennant as Maisie's dad.
Oh no, you're staying right here.
So 2 Doctor Who legends in just one episode. The events of the story are sparked by Bart's fear of catching cooties through a dance class with the girlies, and his way to avoid them is by accidentally giving his boys nicotine patches. This leads him into Super Max detention.
Welcome to Supermax detention.
And I did like that you can spot one of Nelson's old cronies from Bart the General here. And speaking of barely seen characters, later on you'll also find Leopold, who you may remember as the scariest man ever to exist.
Leopold? Alright, you listen up, you little freaks.
So, circling back, Bart is forced to have detention with groundskeeper Willie, but it's not so bad as they get to bond over their mutual dislike for women.
Ugh, this is how we express emotion!
Willie's more specific hate was aimed at his previous beau called Maisie. We find out that she stood him up when they planned to elope to America, which I guess means that I have to make some serious amendments to his timeline. Thank you. And it's through this dislike that Bart and Willie form a friendship, which results in them making pranking TikToks. And it did feel a bit rushed and I wasn't really convinced that they were true friends, but I guess they needed something to make Bart want to go to Scotland. Back at home, Marge and Homer are doom scrolling through TikTok, mindlessly sharing videos. Which did hit home to me, seeing as mine and my husband's WhatsApp conversations have become endless links of things that we find very, very funny. But you know what? It's not that bad. All of a sudden, Marge gets an invite to a destination wedding, and Homer instantly hates the idea, spouting everything he, and I'm sure the writers, really hate about them.
And you're forced to do all these pre-planned activities.
And you know what? This almost made me feel bad for having a destination wedding myself, but hey, at least I made sure to entertain people. The next day, Bart learns that Willie has disappeared in pursuit of Maisie, who DM'd him after seeing his and Bart's TikToks. So Bart begs his parents to use their air miles to go and find him and not to go to the destination wedding. But it turns out, it is a destination wedding. Also, back to what I said about the whole New Orleans segment ever, The Simpsons just animate locations so darn well. I was really lucky to go to Edinburgh in October, and they've really captured the architecture and the kind of vibe so nicely. The Simpsons in general have a real talent in encapsulating certain countries' vibes in almost every single travel episode that I've seen them do. Lisa ventured to the Fringe Festival, which is the world's largest performance arts festival. And I did like that they were attempting to integrate Lisa a bit into the story, and she was very well suited to being in this cultural environment. But they just didn't really go anywhere with it. Like, she apparently saw a bunch of pretentious plays, but then wound up back at the wedding with everyone else. I don't know, I just needed something a bit more. Again, it was really nice to see a Scottish reference specifically, but it just didn't add anything for me. Plus, I'm really sorry to say this, Lisa, but Scotch eggs have pork in them, babe.
I ate something called a Scotch egg, which I very much regret.
Meanwhile, Homer's dragged into doing all kinds of destination wedding activities, like history tours, hiking, haggis making, but at least he got to see a stripper. Oh, wait. It's Homer's constant complaints that makes Marge doubt his romance. And it's that typical marriage crisis story, but for this one, it zooms past way too quickly, but I'm not a big fan of them anyway. I mean, for me personally, they've done so many of these stories that I've kind of become desensitized to it, but again, I watch a lot of The Simpsons. This simply is a brief quarrel, which is quickly healed when Homer surprises her with a TikTok video.
They shouldn't be together, but they are. Oh.
Now, I wasn't a big fan of the quickness of it, and I wasn't really convinced by it, but what I did like was the reference to them making love on a golf course.
For
Not only was it apt for the location of Scotland, because apparently they have the best golf courses in the world, but I also feel that the writers were also referencing season 9's natural born kisses. These callbacks to previous seasons feel far more present recently, and it does really feel as if The Simpsons are really indulging in their hardcore fans' memories of them. Behind the scenes of the wedding, Bart finds out that Maisie's family wants the wedding to happen purely for Willie's nose for sussing out good Pete for their business. So he informs Willie in front of everyone, but to prove Maisie is marrying Willie for all the right reasons, she does this.
Ah, you broke the stiffer! You do love me.
I didn't really think I'd be seeing that much blood outside of a Treehouse of Horror episode. So the wedding is saved and things don't go back to the status quo for once. Yep, and then we get a post-credit sequence song performed by Belle and Sebastian, a Scottish indie pop band from Glasgow who basically narrate Willie's life up until now. And this was done in a really cool way as they used archive episodes to help tell the story, again incorporating the old with the new episodes into a cohesive story. But side note, it really does seem as if they're trying to give these lost causes characters like Willie, Moe and Comic Book Guy their very own lady, and therefore their happy ending. Could it be that the writers are wrapping up the character stories before the series ends? Or, you know, we might just never see this Maisie person again, like Maya. Where the hell is she? And let's face it, when was the last time we ever heard a word from Kamiko? So place your bets down below, people. Will Maisie ever come back? Overall, for me, I did really like this episode for certain things. I like the detail in the setting of Edinburgh, and I did like the use of the guest stars and their performances. Like, I had no idea this was Karen Gillan.
We started sexting right away.
As well as this, I did enjoy that this was a Willie story, but from the perspective of The Simpsons. It was just a really nice way that they entwined the core characters with the side characters.
That's the only friend that you made in America?
Aye.
But overall, balancing everything that I liked and disliked about this episode, I'll be rounding my 3.5 star out of 5 to 4 stars. Therefore, placing these two episodes in 5th and 6th place. But what do you think about this episode? Let me know in the comments below. Also, thank you so much to anyone who has bought my book. It honestly really does mean the world to me. Thank you so much. Please do comment down below and I'd love to have a chat to you about it. Thank you so much, and I'll smell you later.